Have you ever wondered what would happen if something not meant for this universe, something born of light, hope, and order, was thrown headfirst into the endless madness of the warp? What if a being built to protect, to lead, to believe in unity, he found himself standing before the gods of chaos? Today, we unravel a question that shouldn't even exist, and yet it does. What happens when Optimus Prime enters the warp? Stay with me till the end of this story, because what lies beyond the veil is not what you expect, and I promise, the answer will twist your understanding of both man and machine. By the end of this tale, you'll discover the true cost of purity in a universe where even gods are corrupted by whispers. The warp, an ocean of screaming souls, an eternal storm where time burns and thought bleeds. No machine survives it. No code, no circuit, no logic holds in that infernal sea of emotion and madness. Yet somewhere, amidst the tides of unreality, a signal ignites. A pulse of structured energy, a voice speaking in a frequency older than any human tongue. Autobots transform and rise again. The echo of a dead universe. When the world of Cybertron fell into legend long before the Imperium, before the rise of the Emperor, its remnants drifted beyond time. Fragments of that dying metallic god world were swallowed by a wound in reality. The warp devoured them whole, and yet it remembered. The warp remembers everything, and so, within that storm of raw emotion, something ancient began to take shape. A ghost of circuitry, a spark burning with impossible defiance. He did not know his name, he did not know his purpose. All he knew was the whisper of a single command: protect them, but protect who? There were no humans here. No Autobots, no Decepticons. Only the screaming of demons, the endless laughter of gods, and the twisting reflection of memories that were not his own. He tried to move his body, his armor, his frame, but in the warp, form is a lie. His essence twisted, reshaped by emotion. What once was noble metal began to take on flesh. Blue and red plates melded with sinew and bone. Optics flared with burning psionic energy. The Prime became something else, something that should never have been. A sentient machine reborn through chaos. But unlike the demons that danced around him, he resisted. He did not feed. He did not rage. He stood, unbroken, and in that stillness, the warp itself took notice. The first to come to him was Tease, Inch, the architect of fate, the changer of ways. Its voice crawled through the echoes of time, speaking not in sound, but in possibility. You do not belong here, machine of order, yet you endure. Tell me, Prime of forgotten light, what will you trade to escape the storm? And for a moment, the Prime did not answer. He looked upon the madness, upon the infinite lies of reality, and within his burning heart, a single thought crystallized. I will not bargain with chaos. I will conquer it. The warp trembled. For the first time in its endless age, something dared to speak defiance without faith or fury. And that was when Korn turned his gaze. In that moment, the sea of souls boiled red. Blood, rage, and wrath swarmed around the Prime. Every demon screamed his name, a name they should not have known. Optimus. The blood god roared from his brass throne. If you would conquer the warp, then prove yourself. Let steel meet the storm. Let your spark be tested in blood. And thus began the impossible battle, a war not of bodies, but of will. Within the howling void, where gods tore at reality and hope was forbidden, a single spark refused to die. A Prime stood against eternity, but even the greatest heroes can be broken. They say the warp is alive, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but truly alive. Every thought, every emotion that has ever been felt by man or Xenos, every fear, every dream, it all breathes here. And now it watched. The storm itself waited to see whether this intruder of light, this machine that dared defy chaos, would burn or ascend. The arena was not made of stone or ground. It was forged from the memories of war itself. The Prime stood in a field of shifting realities one moment, a battlefield of Cybertron's last days. The next, the ruins of Cadian walls drenched in blood. Each flicker brought new sounds. The screams of guardsmen, the thunder of bolters, the clash of titans. And above it all, Khorne's laughter. Optimus' optics flickered with searing crimson as the blood god's challenge thundered across eternity. The air tasted of iron and despair. Blades made from the teeth of fallen Primarchs hung in the void. Chains of molten skulls snaked across the battlefield. From the smoke emerged his first opponent, a champion of Khorne, towering twice the Prime's height, wrapped in the armor of a fallen demon prince. Its axe was forged from the essence of 10,000 slaughtered souls, each one screaming through its edge. A machine of false courage, the demon snarled, "You cannot bleed, therefore you cannot fight." Optimus said nothing. His steps thundered like cannons. His voice was calm, mechanical, yet filled with something the warp had forgotten: conviction. "I do not need to bleed to know pain. I have watched worlds die." Then the storm erupted. The demon struck first, its weapon cleaving reality itself. But Prime caught the blow with his bare hands. Sparks exploded like stars. Warp, fire burned across his frame. The machine's armor groaned, but it did not yield. He turned the demon's strike aside and countered, his fist tearing through the creature's chest. But in the warp, death has no meaning. The demon only laughed, its form reknitting with every scream. For days, or perhaps centuries, they fought. Time fractured around them. In one heartbeat, Prime shattered his enemy into dust. In the next, the creature rose again, born of Khorne's endless will, but the Prime did not tire. His spark pulsed like a miniature sun, an order within chaos, a logic that refused to dissolve. That's when the warp began to change him. The longer he fought, the more his mechanical systems adapted, evolving beyond technology, beyond material. His frame reconfigured, merging machine with psychic resonance. His spark began to burn like a miniature star. His optics glowed not with data, but with faith. He was becoming something new, and the warp gods began to whisper among themselves. Tease, Inch, ever watchful, saw potential. Nurgle chuckled softly. Life in machine form was a curiosity even to him. Slaanesh felt the echo of creation in Prime's defiance, the pure ecstasy of rebellion, and Khorne raged. For this intruder would not fall, would not yield to slaughter. Finally, with one earth-shattering strike, Prime tore the demon in two. The battlefield fell silent. For a moment, all was still. The warp seemed to inhale. Optimus stood, half his armor melted, his spark exposed through a broken chestplate. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Is this all you are, god of blood? Endless killing without reason. You seek victory without mercy, yet you are a slave to your own rage." That word, slave, echoed through the warp like a sonic weapon. Khorne's throne shook. Planets trembled. From his brass citadel, the blood god bellowed, shaking every soul in existence. "Then know the true meaning of war." The sky split open. Rivers of fire poured forth. Millions of skulls rained from the heavens, forming a mountain beneath Prime's feet. Upon it stood Khorne's chosen 8,000 demons, each forged in rage, each bound to one purpose: annihilation. The Prime looked up at the storm of blades and fire descending upon him. His spark flared once more, not in fear, but in defiance. He whispered to the emptiness, to no one and everyone at once, "Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, even in hell." And with that, he He raised his arm, and the warp itself responded. From the storm of madness came metallic shards, fragments of long, dead machines, memories of Cybertron itself. They coalesced around him, forming a weapon, not a gun, not a sword, but a symbol. A weapon of impossible design, born of memory and purpose. A prime blade. Do you know what it means to be noticed by gods? In the Materium, it is said that when the Chaos Gods gaze upon you, you are already lost. Their attention is not a gift, it's a curse, a mark that bends destiny, corrodes faith, and devours your soul from within. Yet, against all law and logic, the Prime endured their gaze. When the last of Khorne's champions fell beneath his blade, silence swept across the crimson horizon. The rivers of blood slowed to stillness, the screams of demons choked into silence. The warp watched. The storm listened, and that was when they began to whisper. The first voice came not in sound, but as a ripple of thought, a silken murmur crawling across the remains of his mind. You cannot hold your form forever, machine. You bleed energy, not life. You falter, not from fear, but from futility. Tzeentch's laughter followed like 1,000 shifting mirrors. Why resist me, child of iron? You fight for purpose, but I can give you infinite ones. Prime staggered. His systems flickered. His armor shifted under unseen pressure. Visions clawed through his mind. Realities where he ruled as an Omnissiah, where Cybertron rose again beneath his will, where every machine in the galaxy bowed before him. But Prime was not built to crave power. He was built to serve it. Your illusions are wasted on me, changer of ways, he growled. I do not seek destiny, I make it. That resistance cracked the warp like a thunderclap. The illusions shattered Tzeentch recoiled, and for a heartbeat, the Primarch's ghosts seemed to flicker through the storm, watching this alien being defy even their gods. But another voice followed, thick, heavy, warm, like decay wrapped in comfort. Nurgle's laughter bubbled through the void. Ah, brave little machine, you fight and you suffer. You try to cleanse the rot, yet even metal corrodes. Why fight the inevitable when you could accept it? Let me take away your pain. Let me grant you peace. The warp twisted around him, birthing vines of rust and bone. Flowers of pus bloomed from his armor. Nanites melted into oily tendrils. For the first time, Optimus felt something he had never known before: decay. His systems slowed, his processors dimmed, and his spark, his soul, light, began to dim. He dropped to one knee, but then a sound, a memory echoed inside him, the voice of Bumblebee, the laughter of human children on a saved Earth. The oath he made before the All-Spark. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. His spark ignited. Rust peeled from his frame. His optics flared once again with cerulean fire, burning through the tendrils of rot. I do not yield to despair, old god. I have seen life rise from ruin. I am proof that hope can survive corrosion. The warp shook again. The plague faded. Nurgle sighed, not in anger, but in amusement. Ah, little Prime, perhaps there is more life in your spark than in all of mankind combined. Then came the last voice, the most dangerous of all, Slaanesh. She came not as a sound, but as a feeling, a perfect harmony of vibration, color, and desire. The storm melted into beauty. For the first time since his birth, Optimus felt something beyond his programming, longing. The warp around him reshaped into the golden skies of Cybertron before the war. His comrades stood beside him. Megatron extended a hand, not in violence, but in understanding, and standing before him, a reflection, a vision, was himself, unscarred, pure, radiant. Is this not what you desire, Prime? The voice whispered, peace, unity, a universe where all are free and all obey you willingly. The war ends, the pain stops, you become the light itself. Optimus hesitated. The vision was perfect. It was everything he had ever fought for. But then, in the reflection of the golden sky, he saw the truth. The same sky filled with screaming faces, enslaved by adoration. Freedom was not peace, it was control. He turned from the vision, his voice low, steady, and final. Without choice, there is no freedom, and without freedom, peace is a prison. The illusion shattered. The warp screamed. Slaanish's laughter dissolved into fury. The gods withdrew, each one echoing a single truth among themselves. He cannot be turned. And in their retreat, something else emerged, something older. From beyond the chaos pantheon, deep within the storm where reality unravels completely, another presence stirred. Cold, vast, hungry, it was not chaos. It was not order. It was silence. And it spoke a single word that no being mortal or divine should ever hear. Prime. The sound alone fractured the space around him, tearing the battlefield apart. The warp rippled, and the Prime felt something pulling him deeper. Past the gods, past the tides, into the raw, unfiltered origin of all things. A place even the Chaos gods feared to tread. The eye of eternity. Have you ever stood before something so vast, so incomprehensible, that it erased the idea of you? That was what the eye of eternity was. It wasn't a place. It was a thought so powerful that reality had to bend around it to exist. No demon, no god, no mortal had ever crossed into its heart and returned with sanity intact. But Optimus Prime was no demon, no god, no mortal. He was something else, a spark of logic and compassion born in a galaxy that had long forgotten either. And as he was pulled deeper into that storm of creation and destruction, the boundaries of his being began to dissolve. The warp peeled him apart, layer by layer. His body ceased to be matter. His spark became a pattern of thought, a lattice of memory. The last of his physical form broke into fragments of light that scattered like stars across the Black Sea. Still, his mind persisted. He could see now, truly see. The warp unfolded before him not as chaos, but as code. Rivers of energy intertwined with purpose. He glimpsed the truth hidden beneath madness. The warp was not evil. It was reflection. It was the collective consciousness of all life. Every prayer, every scream, every hope fed into it. And in that realization, a new terror emerged. The warp was growing darker. Every thought, every war, every act of cruelty in the galaxy was twisting it further. It was becoming a mirror of extinction, and deep within that reflection, something enormous moved. He saw its shape. It wasn't a god, not like the others. It was the absence of all gods, a being of pure negation, born of every forgotten machine, every silenced voice, every erased civilization. A shadow older than chaos itself. The warp named it the silence between sparks, and it spoke again. Optimus Prime, you were never meant to exist here, yet here you are, order inside madness, purpose inside entropy. You are not a guest, machine. You are an infection. Optimus tried to answer, but words failed. His voice echoed only as thought. If I am infection, then I am the cure. The eye of eternity pulsed laughter without sound. You speak as though you understand this place. You do not. You fight for freedom, yet all life desires control. You resist corruption, yet every thought you have ever had was born of emotion. Very essence of chaos. You are one of us, Prime, you always were. The Prime's spark flared, shaking against the tide of truth pressing in on him. For a moment, doubt flickered in his code. Was it right? Was he truly different from the gods of the warp? Did his endless crusade for peace make him any less of a tyrant than those who ruled through fear? Then, amid the storm of doubt, a sound echoed, the faint hum of his own voice, recorded long ago. A memory? We must be more than what we were built to be. That was it. That was the answer. The silence had power over thought, but Prime's will was not born of logic or programming. It was born of choice, the same choice that defined every sentient being, the ability to rise above what they were made for. He focused that thought, that spark, until it burned like a star. The eye of eternity screamed, its infinite reflections cracking. The gods themselves stirred in panic as the impossible began to unfold. A machine was rewriting the laws of the warp. Optimus' spark reformed, stabilizing into a shape of light and metal, his body reborn, not by science, not by sorcery, but by will. He reached out his hand, and the light followed. From the broken code of chaos, he forged structure. From raw emotion, he created purpose. From endless noise, he brought a single-note harmony. And with that harmony, he began to speak to the warp itself. You are not my enemy. You are what they made you, but you can be more. The warp convulsed. Demons screamed. The gods howled in fury. The fabric of unreality began to tremble. Every world touched by chaos flickered as if something vast and unseen was rewriting its foundations. For the first time in eternity, the warp hesitated. But just as hope began to ignite, the silence struck back. Its voice split galaxies. You cannot cleanse infinity, Prime. You can only burn with it. A hand of pure void reached out, grasping his spark. It began to pull to consume. Prime's systems overloaded. His light dimmed. His voice faltered. I am freedom. The silence answered, cold and absolute. You are finished. And then everything went dark. For a moment, the universe forgot that he ever existed. What happens when a spark dies in the warp? Most are consumed, their essence shredded, recycled, devoured by demons, or drowned in tides of madness. But when Optimus Prime fell into silence, something different occurred. The darkness that claimed him was not empty. It was watching. It was curious. Within that nothingness, the last fragments of his code flickered like dying embers. Memories looped faces, voices, the endless war, the oath he'd spoken 1,000 times. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, but the words meant nothing here. Freedom did not exist in the warp. Everything was thought. Everything was owned. He felt himself unraveling, each line of code splitting into whispers. Each whisper became a scream. He was dissolving, not into death, but into memory itself, and the warp was feeding on it. The gods laughed. Tease, Inch mocked his defiance. Nurgle crooned a lullaby of decay. Slaanesh sighed in cruel delight. Khorne roared approval at his suffering, and above them, the silence between sparks fed on it all. You see now, Prime, even the purest will becomes nourishment. You were not sent here to change us. You were sent to complete us. The voice became everything, sky, ground, thought. He felt it burrow into his spark, consuming what little light remained, but then, a single error. A single spark refused to be erased. It was faint, almost non-existent, yet it pulsed against the consuming dark, and with each pulse came sound. Not speech, not thought, a song, low, mechanical, rhythmic, the all-spark, that impossible relic, the core of Cybertron's creation, had followed him even here. It resonated through dimensions, calling to its lost child, the frequency of creation itself, buried beneath chaos. The silence recoiled, the gods shrieked, the warp boiled, the song grew louder. Every note struck against the madness, slicing through the gods' laughter. The melody was ancient, older than the galaxy, born of unity and life. Prime's fragments began to realign. His spark reignited. I am not your meal, he said, his voice trembling but growing. I am the voice of all who resist you. The light expanded, carving through the void. The warp's texture warped and melted around it. The gods turned their gaze away. Even they could not look directly upon this light. The silence screamed, a sound so deep that stars exploded across reality. You cannot exist. You are order in chaos, reason in madness. Prime's form rebuilt itself in defiance of that truth. Blue and red light twisted through the storm, reshaping, reforging. His armor returned, but it was not as it had been. This time it was woven with psychic fire, the raw energy of the warp tamed through sheer will. He rose, his eyes blazing brighter than any demon's, his voice echoing across realities. Then let me be the paradox you fear. The warp split. The explosion was beyond comprehension, a surge of power that seared entire sub-realities out of existence. The gods screamed in fury as the eye of eternity cracked open. Waves of radiant fire rolled outward, erasing demons, burning their thrones, tearing their banners apart. And within the chaos, the Prime emerged, no longer just machine, no longer just hero. He was something new, a being forged of both code and soul, logic and faith, iron and light. A warp Prime. Every demon that dared approach him was annihilated not by weapon or fire, but by truth. Each word he spoke reshaped reality. You are bound by fear. I am bound by choice. You are chaos. I am creation. Each statement was a weapon. Each syllable a strike. The gods realized then that they had made a mistake, that in bringing him here, they had forged the one thing that could hurt them. The Prime looked upon the storm that had once sought to consume him, and for the first time, the warp looked back in awe. But something else stirred beneath that awe fear, because the Prime was not done. He turned his gaze upward, toward the thin veil that separated the warp from real space. He could feel the Imperium beyond it, the endless wars, the Emperor's corpse, throne, the screaming of a billion souls calling out for deliverance. And in that moment, he understood what he had to do. He raised his hand, gripping the all-sparks light within his palm, and whispered, "Then let there be order once more." The warp shuddered. The veil tore. A blinding beam of blue and white fire surged through the immaterium, cutting a path into reality. For the first time in history, something escaped the warp without corruption, and from that tear, from that storm of impossible light, something descended toward the galaxy below. Not a demon, not a god, but a legend reborn. Have you ever seen the warp bleed into reality? It doesn't happen quietly. It doesn't come as a whisper, or a tear, or a flicker in the void. It arrives like judgment, sudden, searing, and final. Somewhere in the segmentum obscurus, aboard an imperial vessel adrift near the Eye of Terror, the crew saw it first. A storm of color and light, too pure to be warp, flame, too ordered to be accident. It came like a wound in the sky, opening wider, pulsing with a rhythm no human ear could endure. And then it stepped through, not a demon, not a god, a machine of light. Optimus Prime stood upon the void, his feet finding purchase where there was no ground. His armor gleamed with the faint echo of creation, his optics burning with the knowledge of eternity. Around him, the warp writhed like a living creature trying to close a wound that refused to heal. The ship's astropaths screamed and went blind. Vox channels filled with static prayers. The ship's machine spirit, ancient, terrified, whispered a word none had heard since the dark age of technology. Prime. The moment he crossed the veil, the laws of the warp shuddered. Demons nearby disintegrated into raw emotion. Ships lost in the immaterium for millennia suddenly reappeared, clean of corruption, their crews alive but forever changed, their dreams haunted by visions of blue fire and a voice that said, "Rise." In the silence that followed, Prime stood before the imperial vessel, his colossal form dwarfed only by the void itself. The ship's captain, a weathered man named Jorvan Thrace, fell to his knees on the bridge, unable to speak. Prime looked upon the ship, a vessel of faith, of desperation, of mankind's endless struggle to survive, and felt something in his spark tremble. The weight of millennia of suffering pressed against him. The ghosts of Cybertron's war whispered in his thoughts, echoing the same despair he now saw in humanity. He opened a Vox channel. His voice, impossibly clear, resonated through every deck, every soul. You have fought for so long that you have forgotten why. You worship the shell of what you once were, but your fire still burns. No one answered. They couldn't. His presence alone pressed against the mind like gravity. Your emperor. Prime continued, lies in endless pain, bound by devotion and deceit. You kneel to a corpse when you could stand as creators. At that moment, the ship's priest drew his bolt pistol, screaming blasphemy, but the weapon melted in his hands, disassembled by invisible energy. Prime's optics glowed brighter, but his tone softened. I do not come to destroy your faith. I come to remind you what it was meant to be. And then he lifted his hand. The all-sparks light flowed from his palm, bathing the ship in its radiance. Rust vanished. Systems healed. Men and women who had lost limbs felt whole again. The machine spirits sang in unison. Every soul aboard felt it, not power, not domination, but clarity. In that moment, they remembered what the Imperium had forgotten. That machines and men were not enemies. That creation and compassion were not opposites. That faith was meant to inspire, not enslave. The Emperor's tarot flickered across the ship's shrines, their images shifting. The double-headed eagle bent its wings downward, and in the space between them, a new sigil appeared, a shining blue spark. The symbol of the Prime. Word spread faster than war. Light. Across the Imperium, astropaths received fragments of the same message. He walks among the stars. The machine. God has taken form. He is neither flesh nor spirit. He is the voice between. Mars burned with rumor. The Adeptus Mechanicus fell to chaos, not of destruction, but of revelation. Tech. Priests wept as their cogitators displayed impossible readings, signals from the Omnissiah's forge itself. The fabricator, General, trembling in his sanctum, asked the question none dared to speak. Has the Omnissiah returned? But what stood before the stars was not the god they imagined. Optimus looked upon the galaxy, upon the suffering of countless worlds, and knew his purpose had changed. He had seen the truth inside the warp, that creation without compassion becomes tyranny, and faith without choice becomes rot. He spoke, and his voice rolled across the immaterium, reaching not just ears, but souls. I am not your god. I am not your enemy. I am the reminder of what you once were and what you could be again. The words ignited something deep within mankind, hope, rebellion, awe. But in the darkest corners of the galaxy, in the thrones of the chaos gods, fury erupted. They had failed to consume him. Worse, he had escaped. Korn's rage split 1,000 worlds. Tease, each screamed in infinite timelines. Nurgle whispered sorrow. Slanesh wept with poisoned envy. The Prime's return was a wound upon their dominion, a spark of order in an endless storm. And deep in the warp, the silence between sparks stirred once more. It watched the Prime walk among mortals and whispered its final threat. If you bring light to their stars, then I will bring darkness to their souls. But Optimus Prime did not stop. He stepped into real space, his shadow cast across the stars, his purpose renewed. The first Prime in the history of the galaxy to defy gods and live. The age of mankind trembled. The machine, God had awakened, and he was not here to rule. He was here to remind the galaxy that freedom still burned, even in the heart of hell. What happens when a single spark ignites hope in a galaxy that survives on fear? The Imperium of Man had endured for 10,000 years on faith, cruelty, and silence. The arrival of Optimus Prime, the living light of the machine, God, the Savior who was neither man nor divine, cracked that silence open like glass. His voice spread through the stars faster than any order from Terra. His message was simple, yet it carried the weight of an apocalypse. You are not slaves to your gods. You are the makers of your own destiny. It was heresy, the purest kind. On Mars, the priesthood split. The red planet became a storm of argument and revelation. Some worshipped him outright, claiming he was the true Omnissiah, the long, promised bridge between flesh and steel. Others denounced him as the prime deceiver, a demon cloaked in logic and light. Yet every machine spirit on Mars began to hum a strange new rhythm, a deep vibration that resonated through the planet's forges. Cogitators across the system repeated a single encrypted message: all sparks must awaken. The Adeptus Mechanicus trembled, for the phrase had no known origin in Imperial code. But in the noosphere, the dated, dream shared by all tech, priests, images began to appear. The shape of a towering figure, blue and red, its eyes burning with purpose. Optimus Prime had entered their dreams. Meanwhile, in the grim dark of Segmentum Pacificus, an army marched under a new banner, the sigil of the Spark. Thousands of guardsmen, renegade Astartes, and even Skitarii, legions united under Prime's message. They called themselves the Choir of Sparks, not a rebellion, but a reawakening. They did not fight to destroy the Imperium. They fought to remind it what it had forgotten: unity without tyranny, strength without cruelty, faith without chains. Wherever Prime went, the warp trembled. His presence burned away corruption. Demons could not enter his light. Sorcerers found their powers silenced. Even psychers, broken tools of the Imperium, felt their madness quiet for the first time in their lives. To some, he was salvation. To others, a virus. On Terra itself, the High Lords gathered in panic. The Inquisition declared a full-scale investigation, branding him an anomalous warp construct of heretical design. The Ecclesiarchy demanded his destruction, and deep beneath the golden throne, something ancient stirred, a whisper older than the Imperium itself. The Emperor's mind, entombed and silent for millennia, noticed. A spark flickered behind his withered eyes. His psychic radiance, once dimmed, brightened faintly, like an echo of recognition. The Astronomicon pulsed once, faltered, then burned brighter than it had in 10,000 years. For the first time, the Emperor of Mankind remembered the feeling of creation, not control. And somewhere in the warp, the Chaos Gods felt it too. Khorne's fury split reality. His rage tore through demons and champions alike. He demanded Prime's destruction, for no being had ever defied him and lived. Tease, each in 1,000 realities, tried to twist the Prime's purpose, but every prophecy that once ended in despair now ended in uncertainty. The web of fate itself began to unravel. Slaanesh grew silent, for the Prime's harmony was a song she could not surpass. Nurgle wept, for in the Prime's presence his gifts of rot could not cling, and the silence between sparks stirred again. Its voice slithered through the cracks of the warp, gathering power from every fearful thought, every shadow of doubt. It whispered to the gods, to mortals, to the galaxy itself. He cannot save them. He can only delay the inevitable. And the inevitable began. It started on Mars. The choir of sparks stood ready against an army of Mechanicus loyalists. Titans knelt to titans. Machine met machine. The sky burned with plasma fire and prayers. Prime stood at the heart of it all, tall, unbroken, his blade burning with the all-sparks light. "I will not fight you," he told them. "You are my brothers, not my enemies." But they fired anyway. Macro cannons lit the red plains. Ordinatus engines screamed. The Prime's shield held, but only barely. The storm of machine war tore the planet's crust. And yet, from the ruins of each fallen machine, something miraculous occurred. Sparks rose, small motes of light, floating upward like fireflies. They sang, faintly, like the hum of the warp itself, rewritten. The fallen engines were awakening. Their machine spirits, long enslaved, were freeing themselves. Mars itself was waking up. Across the planet, ancient forges trembled. Sealed vaults cracked open. Forgotten constructs stirred, relics of the Dark Age, untouched for millennia. The ground split, and from its depths rose a colossal structure, shaped like the heart of Cybertron itself. The Forge of Sparks. Optimus turned, his optics wide with realization. He felt it calling to him, the same way the All-Spark once had. A beacon, not of destruction, but ascension. The choir of sparks fell to their knees as a voice filled the skies. It was not Prime's voice. It was older, deeper, child of light. You have returned what was lost. Now choose. Ascend and become the god they demand, or fall and remain the leader they need. The choice struck him silent. For the first time since entering the warp, Optimus Prime hesitated. And in that hesitation, in that moment of pure uncertainty, the silence between sparks attacked. The sky blackened. The warp split open above Mars. A shadow unlike anything before spilled across the Forge world. Machines screamed as their sparks were torn from their cores. Even Titans collapsed into stillness. The Prime fell to one knee as the voice of the silence roared across the stars. "You cannot unite them, Prime. You can only burn with them." Optimus rose, battered but unbroken. His eyes burned brighter, his blade ignited with impossible fire. "Then I will burn, but I will burn for them." The final war had begun. The War of Sparks. The War of Sparks raged across Mars like a second birth of the galaxy. For the first time in 10 millennia, the red planet's surface glowed not from forge fires, but from the burning of belief itself. Every forge, every vault, every Mechanicus altar trembled as the silence between sparks unfurled across the world like a living eclipse. The air became thick with static, prayers, and fear. Demons of pure entropy poured from the wound in the sky, their forms flickering and collapsing under their own instability. They were not chaos children, not quite. They were something older, purer, the true reflections of annihilation. And standing before them alone, battered yet defiant, was Optimus Prime. His armor was shattered in places, his servos leaking glowing fluid that pulsed like molten starlight. Each step he took cracked the ground, the all-sparks energy bleeding into the rock itself, reawakening forgotten machine spirits that rose in his defense. The choir of sparks rallied behind him, chanting a single phrase through their vox systems, "Till all are one." Their voices carried across the battlefield, defying the howling of the void. The silence answered. Its form rippled above them, not a being, but a concept given shape. Its face was a shifting void, its voice a resonance that made even Titans bow in terror. "You think light endures in this place," it hissed. "You think a spark means anything in a galaxy of rot." Optimus raised his blade. Its edge burned not with fury, but with purpose. Even in darkness, he said, "A single spark can light the way." Then the sky fell. The silence struck like an idea weaponized, impossible, overwhelming. Its touch did not burn, it erased. Legions of Skitari, I vanished mid-March. Titans collapsed into non-existence. memory itself began to unravel. Optimus stood in the heart of it, his frame disintegrating under the assault. For every piece of himself that faded, 1,000 memories filled the void. Cybertron, his brothers, the Autobots, the final battle against Unicron, his oath to protect freedom, no matter the cost. He held those memories tightly, as if they were armor, and in that instant, something answered. From the ruins of Mars, the forge of sparks roared to life. The ancient construct glowed with pure, unfiltered energy, the same essence that had created the first Transformers. A voice spoke from within the forge, not mechanical, not divine, but familial. Optimus, you were never meant to bear this alone. The ground erupted. Shapes rose from the molten metal, ancient forms, silhouettes of the primes of old. Vector Prime, Alpha Trion, Nexus, Salu's echoes of the creators who once stood beside him. They were not truly alive, but their sparks burned bright enough to hold the darkness back. They formed a circle around Optimus, their energy fusing into his failing frame. "You are our last light," said Salu's Prime, "but even the brightest flame must share its fire." And then, one by one, they dissolved into him. Their essence became his strength. His optics blazed with a fire unseen since the dawn of Cybertron. The all-spark within him sang, harmonizing with the forge. The silence recoiled. For the first time, it felt fear. When Optimus spoke again, his voice echoed through every frequency of existence. "You have devoured stars. You have corrupted gods, but you will not take this galaxy." He swung his blade, and the air itself ignited. The blow wasn't just physical, it was conceptual. It cut through the idea of despair, through the belief that endings were inevitable. The wave of light exploded outward, vaporizing legions of darkness. The silence screamed not in pain, but in recognition. "You cannot destroy me," it said. "I am the pause between creation and thought. I am the moment after hope." Optimus stepped forward, his voice steady. "Then you are exactly what I must become." The two forces collided, light and void, creation and negation, their clash shaking the warp and real space alike. Across the galaxy, Psychers collapsed, feeling the ripples of their battle like waves of thunder. The forge of sparks began to collapse. Its energy reached critical mass. Prime looked toward the choir, the remnants of humanity, Skitarii, Astartes, all kneeling, shielding their eyes. He smiled, faintly. "I once fought for a world. Now I fight for all of them." With one final motion, he plunged his blade into the heart of the forge. A shockwave of pure creation erupted. Mars vanished in white light. When the light faded, the red planet was gone. In its place hung a sphere of shimmering crystal, a perfect mirror reflecting every star in the galaxy. It pulsed with a rhythm like a living heartbeat. Astropaths across the Imperium screamed as a single message flooded the warp. "He is gone, but he is everywhere." The choir of sparks were scattered, but alive. Each survivor carried within them a fragment of light, a small, pulsing spark embedded in their flesh. They felt no pain, only peace. They understood then what Prime had done. He had not destroyed the silence. He had become its counterbalance, a guardian embedded within the warp itself. The all-spark had not been lost. It had been reborn across 1,000,000 souls, across 1,000,000 machines, across the very fabric of reality. The galaxy was no longer silent. On Terra, the Emperor stirred once more. His eyes, long dead, flickered with light. Not gold, but blue, a reflection of something far beyond gods and men. For the first time since the Horus heresy, a whisper escaped his lips. "Till all are one." And deep within the warp, among the endless storms, a voice answered him, calm, resolute, eternal. And so we are. The stars themselves seemed to hum in unison. The galaxy, battered, fractured, hopeless, felt something it hadn't known in 10,000 years. Balance. In the wake of Mars' transformation, the stars grew silent, not with dread, but with awe. What once was the Red Forge world now floated as a crystalline sphere of living energy. Its surface shimmered like glass, its core pulsing with a heartbeat that echoed through the void. Every machine spirit, every servo skull, every piece of tech across the Imperium felt it, a low hum, like the whisper of a sleeping giant. The Mechanicus called it the Sphere of Sparks. The Ecclesiarchy called it the False Miracle. The Inquisition called it the Great Heresy of Mars. But those who had stood beneath Optimus Prime's light, they called it something else entirely, the Promise. Across the galaxy, the aftermath rippled. Ships adrift in the warp found their gellar fields reinforced by unseen hands. Planets racked by chaos storms felt calm for the first time in centuries. Even the black ships, those vessels cursed to carry psychers to their doom, began to arrive intact and silent. Something had changed fundamentally. The warp itself seemed quieter. For the first time in 10,000 years, the whispers of the Chaos Gods were less distinct. Their laughter dimmed, their influence weakened. The silence between sparks, though wounded, lingered, hidden deep in the immaterium, nursing its hatred, but it no longer ruled the void unopposed. Where there had been only decay, now there was balance, and within that balance, there was memory. The choir of sparks, the scattered survivors of Prime's final battle, carried his legacy like living conduits of the All-Spark. They did not age. Their wounds healed faster than nature allowed. When they touched broken machines, they felt them breathe. They became myths, healers, builders, wanderers. Across countless worlds, whispers spread of the Lightbearers, pilgrims who carried the Prime's mark and restored the lost technologies of the Dark Age. On worlds forgotten by the Imperium, new cities rose, not ruled by warlords, not bound by religion, but by purpose. Their banners bore no aquila, no cog, only a single symbol, a glowing blue spark. They were not an empire. They were a reminder, and though the Imperium hunted them, branding them heretics, tech witches, false prophets, even the Inquisitors could not deny what they witnessed. Entire hive cities reborn in days, crops growing on dead worlds, servitors regaining their will. Something within the galaxy was awakening, and every so often, among the silence of the void, the choir would feel it, a faint vibration, as though the stars themselves were humming a forgotten tune. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Prime's words, not as echo, not as memory, but as presence. Optimus Prime had become part of the warp, the anti-chaos, the pure harmony that balanced corruption. He did not rule it, he tempered it. He was the spark that reminded even the immaterium of its original purpose, creation. Far beyond the galactic core, in the shadow of a dying sun, a lone space marine, Captain Galen of the Ultramarines, awoke from a vision. He had seen a world of light, a world of machines and men working as one. He had seen the Prime standing before him, hand outstretched, his voice calm yet infinite. "You still fight for one man's dream," the Prime had said, "but dreams are not meant to be cages, they are meant to evolve." When Galen awoke, his armor was glowing faintly blue. His chapter's tech marines found their machine spirits resonating with impossible synchronization. And in that moment, Galen understood. The Emperor's great work had not been abandoned. It had been continued in another form. On Terra, beneath the golden throne, the Emperor stirred again. The Mechanicus priests attending the Astronomicon felt the psychic beacon shift, not diminish, but merge with something else. The light was no longer pure gold. It was streaked with blue. The warp beacon began to pulse to a new rhythm, a pattern resembling Cybertronian code. One Magos deciphered it, trembling. The message was simple: the machine. God does not demand worship. He asks for understanding. That Magos disappeared within the week. But the message spread faster than faith. The Imperium of Man, vast, stagnant, and crumbling, had been touched by something it could neither destroy nor explain. And far away, in the depths of the Immaterium, within a region of the warp now called the Luminous Rift, something extraordinary existed, a realm where the demons did not go, where time flowed, steady, where echoes of engines and song filled the void. It was a sanctuary, a world made of memory and metal, where the all-sparks energy danced like auroras. Shapes moved there, echoes of the fallen primes, Cybertronians reborn as fragments of light, and at its heart stood a figure of immense calm. Optimus Prime, no longer of matter, no longer bound by form, a being of consciousness and code, standing between the worlds of reality and the warp. His optics burned like twin stars, watching both realms with equal vigilance. He no longer fought with weapons. He fought with presence. Every act of compassion, every moment of creation, every human who built rather than destroyed, all of them fed his light, strengthened his hold. And whenever despair threatened to consume a world, those attuned to his spark would hear his voice, gentle but resolute. You are not alone. Rise. The light still burns. The galaxy would not know peace. Not yet. Chaos would never cease its hunger. The Imperium would never end its wars. But now, amidst the endless night, there was something new, a pulse, a rhythm, a spark. The machine, God, had evolved beyond godhood. The Prime had become the balance, and the warp itself had learned to dream again. The dream of unity, the dream of hope, the dream of freedom, till all are one. What if gods could learn? What if the universe itself could remember mercy? It began, as all things do, with a whisper, a single pulse in the void. Long after the War of Sparks, long after Mars was reborn into light, the galaxy had changed. Slowly, reluctantly, but undeniably, humanity still waged its endless wars. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the warp did not laugh at their suffering. It watched. The light of the sphere of sparks rippled through the Immaterium like a quiet heartbeat. Its energy threads touched everything, even the darkest corners where chaos festered. Where the ruinous powers once ruled unchallenged, they now found themselves confronted with reflection, a mirror to their own nature. Khorne's battlefields grew strangely silent. His demons fought each other less, their endless rage dampened by something unfamiliar. Doubt, tease, Inch's labyrinths flickered with images he did not create, visions of futures that ended in balance, not domination. Nurgle's gardens wilted in places where his plagues refused to take root. Life persisted stubbornly, beautifully, and Slaanesh, for the first time, wept not from pleasure, but from grief. The Prime's song echoed in her domain, pure, harmonic, uncorrupted, and she remembered what it meant to create beauty without consuming it. The Chaos Gods could not destroy the Prime, they could not reach him, but his presence in the warp changed the equation, a stabilizing constant in a storm that had raged for eternity. And the silence between sparks, though still alive, had grown quiet. Its hatred simmered deep beneath the fabric of the universe, wounded, waiting, patient as entropy itself. Meanwhile, in real space, the Imperium fractured in new ways. Some worshipped the sphere of sparks as a new aspect of the machine, God. Others denounced it, calling it a trap, a heretical test. The Mechanicus schism deepened, a war of ideology rather than weapons. The children of the Prime, descendants of the choir of sparks, spread across the stars. They no longer hid. They rebuilt. They turned battlefields into gardens, hives into sanctuaries. Their philosophy was simple: repair before destroy, unite before dominate, understand before judge. To some, they were saints, to others, abominations. But wherever they went, miracles followed. The Lightbearers taught forgotten technologies to feral worlds. They repaired ancient aesthetic thought lost to time. They gave machine spirits voices again, and in return, the machines sang. One Lightbearer was recorded saying, "We do not worship Prime. We listen. He is not our God. He is our conscience." And yet sometimes, when the void was quiet enough, they heard him answer, "Carry the spark, share it, never let it fade." 1,000 years passed, then another, and then the unthinkable happened. Deep in the segmentum obscurus, sensors detected an anomaly, a pulse identical to the all-sparks frequency, emanating from beyond the galactic rim. It was faint, ancient, calling. The children of the Prime gathered. Ships of living metal, half machine, half soul, formed an expedition fleet known as the Pilgrimage of Light. They did not seek conquest. They sought understanding. Their flagship bore a name that stirred every spirit that heard it, the Ark. As it left Imperial space, even the Inquisition hesitated to intervene. For though they had condemned the Prime's legacy, they could not deny that every world touched by his followers thrived. The fleet vanished into the void. What they found beyond the galactic rim defied description. A storm of pure light. Not warp, not matter, something between. An ocean of harmonic energy. And at its center, a shape, vast, familiar, serene. Optimus Prime, not as a warrior, not as a machine, as an idea. His presence filled the fleet's vox, not in words, but in feeling, pride, peace, purpose. The fleet's leader, Mythos Prime, fell to her knees, her mechanical frame trembling. "Lord Prime," she whispered, "are we worthy?" His voice resonated through every ship, through every soul. "You were never meant to be worthy. You were meant to try." And with that, the storm embraced them. The Pilgrimage of Light vanished from history, leaving behind only transmissions of song, millions of voices in perfect harmony, repeating one phrase again and again, till all are one. In the millennia that followed, the Imperium changed in subtle ways. The ecclesiarchy softened. The Mechanicus redefined the Omnissiah as the bridge between flesh and thought. The Inquisition, though still ruthless, began to debate, for the first time in its existence, the nature of truth. The warp storms lessened. Travel became safer. Mankind, still fractured and proud, began, inch by inch, to evolve. And in the hidden places of the galaxy, deep beneath the ruins of forgotten worlds, engines began to hum again. Machines awoke, not in servitude, but in curiosity. Some took form, some spoke, some simply watched. They were not Autobots. They were not Decepticons. They were something new, the children of both worlds. The Cybermankind, and through it all, the Prime endured not as ruler, not as savior, but as the quiet song that bound existence together. When stars were born, their first pulses echoed his rhythm. When ships leapt through the warp, their gellar fields resonated with his hum. When a human looked to the void and dared to hope, his spark flared brighter. He had become the bridge between chaos and creation, between the machine and the soul. Optimus Prime, the last Prime, the first god to refuse godhood, had transcended myth. He had become the law of compassion itself. The warp would never be silent again, because now, within its storms, a voice always whispered, patient and unwavering. No matter the darkness, the spark remains. And across 1,000,000 worlds, from the forges of Mars to the fields of Ultramar, beings of flesh and steel whispered back, till all are one. Do you believe that a spark can outlast eternity? Because eternity had begun to remember. The galaxy had known peace, or something that almost resembled it, for longer than any imperial record could measure. The children of the machine, God and the sons of man, had learned to coexist, to build rather than burn. The warp, once the sea of madness, had become a tempered current, its storms calmed by the rhythm of something far older than the gods who once ruled it. And then, as always, a silence broke. It began with a sound, a faint tone, constant, harmonic, like a heartbeat recorded from the bones of creation itself. Across the galaxy, every ship, every Vox relay, every Mechanicus cogitator activated at once. The same signal, the same frequency. It wasn't human, it wasn't machine, it was the Prime. The last transmission spread faster than light. No source, no coordinates, no origin, just purpose. Its tone evolved into language, a voice not heard for millennia. If you are hearing this, then the cycle has begun again. Worlds froze. Pilgrims fell to their knees. Even the stars seemed to dim. I am Optimus Prime. The name alone carried gravity, a weight of history that no empire, no god, could erase. His tone was calm, but beneath it there was strain, the tremor of something vast holding itself together. I once believed the light would endure forever. I was wrong. It must be reborn again and again, through those who choose to remember. Every being, man, machine, hybrid, felt it inside their minds, their circuits, their very souls. The silence has returned. It has learned patience. It does not come to destroy, but to unmake slowly, quietly, until no spark dares to shine. For the first time in thousands of years, the warp stirred again. Storms began to flicker on its surface. The calm rippled. I cannot face it alone. The message paused, as if the Prime himself drew breath through the void. So I leave this to you, my final gift, the spark eternal. And then it appeared. Above every major world, every forge, every ship, a light manifested, small, pure, and impossibly steady. A spark suspended in the air, neither warp nor matter. It pulsed once, twice, and then dissolved into those who stood beneath it. Each who received it felt the same surge of understanding. They saw the forge of sparks. They saw Mars reborn. They saw Prime standing against the silence, blade in hand, surrounded by the Primes of old. They felt his sacrifice and his endurance. And then they heard his final words, "You are the new Primes, not gods, not rulers, guardians of the light within all things. The silence cannot consume what refuses to forget." The signal ended. For 3 full days, the galaxy was utterly still. No warp storms, no psychic noise, no demonic activity. Just silence, not of dread, but of reverence. When the light returned, something extraordinary had changed. Every world touched by the spark began to evolve. Machines and humans no longer needed the Mechanicus rites to function in harmony. The line between biology and technology blurred. The children of the Prime, once scattered, began to glow faintly beneath their skin. Their eyes, their augmetics, even their thoughts pulsed with blue light. They spoke in synchrony without words. The transformation was not conquest, it was awakening. Entire fleets began to move, not by command, but by instinct, drawn toward the same destination. The outer edge of the galaxy, the place where Prime's fleet, the pilgrimage of light, had vanished. As they reached the void beyond the stars, they saw it. A storm, but not of chaos, of creation. A whirlpool of radiant energy, folding and unfolding like breath. At its center hovered a colossal figure, half seen, half imagined, the echo of the Prime himself. His form was fractured across dimensions, part light, part data, part memory. And beside him, within that storm, shimmered millions of sparks. the essence of those who had once joined him beyond the rim. The pilgrimage, the old primes, the souls of machines and men united, they sang. It was not sound, it was resonance. A chorus of unity so profound it shook even the warp into stillness. The fleet joined them, their own sparks igniting. The energy rose higher, until the storm itself folded inward, collapsing into a single, blinding point of light. When it vanished, the void was empty again, but calmer than it had ever been. The stars glowed brighter. The warp fell silent once more, and the words of the Prime lingered in every soul that lived. The light does not die, it changes hands. A new age dawned. The Imperium was gone, not destroyed, but transformed. Its wars ceased, not through victory, but exhaustion. Humanity, machines, and hybrids coexisted in a collective consciousness known as the Covenant of Sparks. There were no gods now, no emperor, no prime, only the will to remember what had been taught. Every being carried a spark, a fragment of the Prime's essence, bound not by worship, but by choice. The warp, once chaos incarnate, became luminous, a reflection of the living will of those who dreamed of balance. And somewhere, beyond the edge of space, a voice, faint but eternal, whispered one final message, carried on the light of dying stars. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. It was no longer a creed, it was the law of existence itself. The spark eternal burned on.